Most people want to be wealthy, but here's the truth. Money follows mindset. The way the top 1% thinks is completely different than the way that the average person thinks. And if you want their results, you have to rewire your brain to think like them. Today, I'm breaking down exactly how the 1% thinks differently and how you can start applying it in your own life. Right now, the 1% think long term. The average mindset is, am I going to get paid on time this Friday? The 1% mindset is, how will this decision pay me in the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and even 20 years? For example, instead of buying the latest iPhone on a credit card, they're thinking, what asset can I buy that's going to pay me later down the line so that my asset buys my phone later? The takeaway is, start asking yourself, will this decision pay me down the line in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? And when you zoom out like this, you really look at the big picture. So maybe you're offered a different position and the salary is a little bit higher, but it's in a field that you realistically don't see yourself being in like the next 10, 20 years. Then even though you might make a little bit more in the short term, if you start to zoom out and think long term, you might start to realize that climbing a corporate ladder that is in a field that you don't want to end up in might not be the best decision for your career. You don't want to end up somewhere that you hate in the long term just because you decided that a little bit more money was worth it in the short term. And this is especially true when you watch podcasts about people who are struggling financially. You start to notice that they think in terms of week and sometimes even day. How can I make it through the day? And sometimes that is out of your control. Some people are less fortunate. But the reality of it is, if you grew up in that kind of environment and your brain is trained to think in that way, then a lot of these people, I'll see that they're making really good income, like more than the average person, a lot more. And they're still stuck in that scarcity mindset, and they're still stuck sort of playing small and thinking small when it comes to their finances. The next one is they see problems as opportunities. So while the average mindset might be, oh, that's too expensive, I can't afford it, the 1% mindset is, how can I create value so that I can afford it? Basically, how can I afford it? If you think about Uber, it's really that somebody saw a problem, which is how expensive taxis are, and they decided to solve that problem. So challenge yourself. Instead of saying, I can't afford it, ask yourself, how can I afford it? And you can start applying this to every aspect of your life. If you just currently think about your position in your job, in your work, really, if you ever go to ask for a raise or a promotion, the first thing that's going to come up is, okay, well, what can you do to add more to the team? What can you do to bring more value to this company? How can you help us make more money? How can you help us meet our goals and our deadlines? And so it's really in every aspect of your life. It's not just in money. The next one is they value time over money. The average person trades time for money. But you really want to get to a point where you're able to scale and not have to do that. That is the ultimate goal. The 1% uses money to buy back their time. And in essence, everybody who is chasing financial independence, financial freedom, we're all basically trying to do the same thing. Make enough money and invest enough money so that we can buy back our freedom and dictate how we want to live our lives. So a good example of this is they might hire a cleaner instead of spending 5 hours of their time cleaning their own house, because they realize that at a certain point there is a trade-off to where if you spend 5 hours focusing on your business instead, or focusing on how you can make more money, that's worth a lot more than the amount that you would pay somebody to clean your house. Whenever you ask millionaires and billionaires what the most valuable resource is, they never really say money, they always say time. And this is partly because many millionaires are older. According to the book, The Millionaire Next Door, most millionaires are not young or in their 20s. They're not influencers. They're just normal everyday people who have normal everyday jobs. Apparently a bunch of millionaires are also basically teachers, and they just essentially saved and invested and became wealthy later on in life. So yes, there is a little bias to that. If you're asking everyone who is older what the most valuable resources, they will generally say time. You know, if you ask them what their biggest regret was when they were younger, they'll say travel. So recognizing that while you are trying to build your wealth and while you're on this journey of wealth creation, it's also still important to recognize that you also need to live for today and understand that time isn't necessarily something that you can buy back later on, because once something passes, it really is gone. Like, one of my regrets is not traveling when I was younger and not studying abroad. And that's because if you're 18 and you go to Europe, let's say you do European summer, you can probably stay in hostels and you can probably eat street food and you'd be fine. You're 18, you have all the energy in the world. Now, if somebody asked me to stay in a hostel, I just don't think I can. I just don't think at this age I'm meant to live an uncomfortable life. So there are certain things where if it passes, you're not going to be able to get it back. And I think it is very important to be mindful. There is a fine line between building your wealth and living a miserable life. And I think the best thing to do is to have balance. And this is also very common with business owners who want to do everything themselves and they don't want to outsource anything because they're like, oh, that's so expensive. But there is something to be said about investing in yourself and investing in your business. So maybe you pay for college. Let's say that's an investment in yourself. I know there's a lot of controversy now about college education, but that is an investment. And at one point you did decide that it was worth the investment if you did decide to go. So if you're a business owner, at one point you have to decide, is it worth it for me to outsource things? Can that really help me grow my business? Am I actually keeping myself stuck by not outsourcing anything? So every time you spend hours on something, ask yourself, is this worth it? Or will I get better returns on my investment if I outsource it? The next one is they invest in assets, not just stuff. And this is key. The average mindset is, let me spend $5,000 on a new bag so that I can look rich. But the 1% mindset is, let me spend $5,000 on index fund or an asset that can grow. For example, Warren Buffett bought his first stock at 11 years old and he's worth billions now because he planted seeds early. So before every single purchase, ask yourself, does this make me look rich or would this actually make me rich? The next one is they build networks, not just paychecks. The average person focuses on how much money they make. What's your income? What's your salary? That's on everyone's mind. The 1% focuses on who they know and who knows them. So many opportunities can come from just one conversation, one connection. That's why the wealthy spend so much time at events and dinners and masterminds. So something you can start doing is start saying yes to events, start building relationships. You can reach out to people online and add value first. I mean, even something as simple as going to happy hour at your work versus skipping happy hour. My dog is here. Oh, you can see her. Hun, I'm busy. Okay. It's incredibly shocking to me how many people get promoted, not necessarily because they're like the better employee or they bring more value to the team, but because they're more well-liked. So build those relationships and those connections. It is actually very important. The next one is they obsess over growth and learning. The average mindset is that learning stops after school. And it's a very tempting mindset. Like, I also was very traumatized from school. And afterwards I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad to be done. But the reality is learning never stops and you should never want to stop learning. The 1% are constantly students of life. They're always reading books, hiring mentors, studying psychology, finance, health. And it can be really easy to actually start consuming content that is beneficial to you. So instead of doom scrolling, you can actually listen to a podcast or read a book. Honestly, even when you're on TikTok, sometimes I like to watch those TikToks about personal finance. Actually, I recently started a TikTok that is only about personal finance, so I'll link that down below if you guys prefer short form content. But don't be afraid to learn. Every time you learn a new skill, you're basically adding that to your resume. You're basically adding that to your bag of tricks, and you just never know when an opportunity is going to come up. And the thing about getting lucky or being lucky is it's just preparation meets opportunity. So if you're always prepared, you're more likely to get lucky. So in summary, the difference between the average person and the 1% isn't luck. It's mindsets, habits, and how they approach life. If you start thinking long-term, valuing your time, investing in assets, prioritizing growth, and building networks, you'll slowly start to see your results transform. Remember, wealth isn't just what's in your bank account. It starts in your mind. If you like this video, be sure to check out this next one on signs that you're doing better financially than you think. And don't forget to follow for more. Like this video, it really helps me out, and I will see you next time. Bye!